Hi, everybody. My name is Miguel Hernandez. I'm a first officer with the California Natural Resources Agency. Want to thank you all for being here, taking the time to learn more about this project, the Bombay Beach Wetland Enhancement Project. We'll also be touching about the Vegetation Enhancement Project on the other side of town. We have an update on that. On your agenda, if you did get one, just so you know that we'll be switching the order a little bit. I think it's number 2 and number 3. We're gonna open up first with the Vegetation Enhancement Project update, and then we'll move on to the update on the Bombay Beach Wetland Project. So, again, I'm with the Natural Resources Agency. We can hit the next slide, please. And before I start with a quick overview, I just want to let you all know that there's interpretation available if you need it, both on Zoom and here in person at Bombay Beach Community Center. You can go out to one of the devices on that table on the back. We have live interpretation happening right now. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing in Spanish if somebody needs it. Tenemos interpretación en español disponible. Si alguien necesita un dispositivo auricular, lo puede tomar en la parte de atrás, allá le entregan el aparato. Y la interpretación es simultánea. Está la traducción. Nuestros intérpretes están dando el mismo diálogo por micrófono. Entonces, también en Zoom está esa opción disponible. En el menú de Zoom ahí puede colocar la opción de interpretar en español. So this option is also available on Zoom. Look for that little globe icon that says interpretation. You'll click on where it says Spanish or English. It also suggests that you mute your original audio. Otherwise, you might be hearing both sounds. So let you know that's available. Next slide, please. Okay, we also have some other features on Zoom. For those that weren't able to be here in person, we have a raise hand feature, which is we get to the Q&A section of every part of a meeting. That'll be the button giving you the press to ask questions online. For those here in person, we'll just go raise some hands. And that's how we'll go around with the Q&A. On Zoom, there's also a Q&A box. So at any time, you can go in there and type in your questions, and we'll try to answer it live or via text or through the Q&A box itself. Also, closed captioning is available on Zoom. If you need that, go to the bottom of your Zoom page and you will see that closed captioning option available for you. Okay, next slide, please. One more. Okay, before we go on to the presentation, again, remind you all that we have snacks in the bag and water. Just want to thank Director Parliament and IID for providing those snacks for tonight. And help yourself to get some of those as well. And sign up if you haven't gotten your name on the sign-in sheet. So real quick, just wanted to mention that I am part of the Sound Management Program. This program is a state program that's comprised of 3 state agencies, Natural Resources Agency, the Department of Water Resources, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So this group comes together as the Sound Management Program team, and we're in charge of restoration projects around the Salt Sea. There are other projects, there are other efforts happening at the sea, but our program is focused on ecological restoration at the sea. And we'll be touching on 2 of the projects that we have actively going on here at the sea. Actually, 2 of them that are adjacent to the community of Bombay Beach. So, and before I get started, I just want to do a quick round of intros with who's here from our team. And I already said, my name is Miguel, the first officer of the Natural Resources Agency. We also have my colleague Maria Llanos, also with the Natural Resources Agency. Colleague Stephen Garcia, the Department of Water Resources. Also, our partners at Audubon, Camila Bautista with Audubon, and Elisa also with Audubon. They're part of the team that the legal center today. And Hans, one of the contractors for Audubon. And also Josh, who's helping with our IT side for risk communication. So again, thank you all for being here. We'll get started with the meeting. And like I said, just a slight change on the agenda. We'll proceed with vegetation enhancement project update and then move on. Then we'll do some Q&A in between, and then we'll do the update for the wetland enhancement project. So we can all go over.
Thank you so much. Welcome, and thank you for being here today. My name is Mario Llanos, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Natural Resources Agencies. Good to be here in Bombay Beach. It was even better to have a burger from the ski earlier. That was excellent. Anyways, I just wanted to talk. We're here to talk about mostly about the Bombay Beach wetland restoration project. And that's one of the largest collaborative projects with Audubon. And we're going to give an update on that project. We're going to give an update on our veg enhancement projects when we here at West Bombay Beach. 93 acres over on the side here. Folks here refer to it as the hay project, right? The hay bale project. Just wanted to give an update because I've seen some news articles you've heard at various meetings, what's going on and when is vegetation coming, where's the water. And so just wanted to give an update and talk about that project, where we're at, how we got here. Next slide, please. So these vegetation enhancement projects, these were the first set of best project projects that we started placing along the Salt Sea to suppress dust. And back in 2019 and 2020, 2021 around there, 2019, 2020, we held a series of meetings. There was probably about 6 different meetings one year, a couple of Salt Sea or Desert Shores, I believe, in America, to develop a dust suppression action plan. And that dust suppression action plan laid out various treatments for suppressing dust for projects around the sea. There were different elements like putting gravel down, doing windrows and wind furrows. That's the furrows that you see like IADs doing around the sea. Engineered surface roughening, putting down objects like bales, sand fencing, which is like that orange fencing that you put down the stakes and used to kind of break wind coming into along the playa to keep the dust right. So various different treatments were identified in that plan, and we used that plan and research to kind of guide our process moving forward. A lot that informs what kind of treatment we use is like the soil texture, the orientation of the project, and one thing that we heard is folks wanted projects near communities that on exposed lake bed that were some of the highest emitting sites. So we prioritized those sites, and the first set of veg projects that we prioritized, there were 2 near the community of Sun City. And the one here in West Bombay Beach, which is 93 acres. We have 2 sites at Clubhouse, 399 acres over there called Clubhouse. And then we have another site at Tilly Watch, which is 1,200 acres. And just kind of an overview of what the goal is here is to create an interim dust suppression using the grass bales. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is coming in and planting in between the bales and then planting downwind. Once the bales have done their job and broken down that we call it saltation, that's the movement of particles along the ground level being blown in off the site and kicking the dust out from the site as it goes through the ground level, right? And so these barriers block that and also protect the plants so we can give them a head start to get them growing. As you know, winds here can be very challenging, and that abrasiveness just really beats the plants up. And so part of the reason that the bales go through is not only to create an immediate interim dust suppression action, but also to protect the plants and give them a head start, and give them a chance to start growing and take hold. And so that's the goal of the project, and ultimately, foster growth in existing vegetation, and get that growth large enough so that it can also provide that interim dust suppression and keep the dust suppressed on the site, where otherwise there was no vegetation, or very little vegetation before. Next slide. So we are monitoring the sites. We have, where you see the 3 different labels here. We have, this is over at our clubhouse site. I'm pointing to the picture in the middle, if you can see it. So where it says up, CHS up, we have a air monitor on the upwind side, because we see that the wind is coming from the inland to the deserts and pushing across through the Salton Sea. And so we have one of these air monitors at the top or at the upwind side. We have one in the middle of our project and one downwind side. And what we're seeing is, we're seeing the wind coming in from the west, bringing in dust from the desert areas and bringing them into the communities and out into the sea, coming over the Salton Sea and out into the community of Bombay Beach. And so you can see that at the edge of our projects, we put dense bales, which you see those 4 bale arrays on the third picture on the right. You have these dense bale arrays that are blocking the dust, and that's that first line of defense or dust, right? So when the dust is coming in from the desert, it's hitting those bales and practically burying those bales out there. And what's happening is it's reducing saltation, meaning the movement of dust particles at the ground level, from stopping them from kicking up other dust particles and kicking up that emissive dust from the sites on some of the more emissive sites across the Salton Sea on that exposed lake there. So what we're finding is a 90% reduction in that saltation, that movement of soil particles at the ground, kicking up other soil particles. We've seen 90% reduction from the upwind side to the downwind side. Showing that the immediate dust, the interim dust suppression of the placement of bales is doing their job immediately when the bales get put down, regardless of any plants being grown. So that's kind of the first phase, and second phase involves planting. Next slide. So we've gone in and started the second phase over at clubhouse sites and the total watch sites, and you're probably wondering what happened to the second phase over here. Why do we only see bales out there? Well, that's because we're doing groundwater drilling on that side, and we're using groundwater to sustain and to plant these or to water these plants, right? We did around the same time. We started drilling over here in the West Palm Beach, location, and we did not find any water. We went all the way down to 800 feet, did not find any water. Our experts tell us that it's because of the fault lines and that they couldn't see any water there. We were limited to the space that we have to work with, so we couldn't go potholing. It could become really expensive. So that's what delayed the project. That's why you don't see any plants. However, we will be using a local water source to tap in and establish these plants, and then take it all out and get them established, get them on their own without water, and remove the construction meter on that site. And so these plants are self-sustaining. There's a handful of plants, they're halophytic plants. They sustain, they contain high salinity, high water salinity, very tough. And what we're seeing on the other side of the sea is that they're extremely tough against wind, against abrasion, against salty water, and salty soil, and just some of the worst soil conditions as well. So this site here, where we're at now here is we started the trial last May, or the end of last spring, and we started the trial because this site, I will say, where the other sites are super sandy, the site has a little more clay in it, and we noticed that compared to some of the sites over at the Salton City side, we saw a little more established plant growth that was there, existing plant growth that was there, where we saw very little on this side. That has to do with the lack of water, and I did read a quote in the newspaper about, well, I need to drill on the other side of Bombay Beach. They found shallow water, right on the other side. Why can't we use that water? Why can't we drill on that side? Well, like I said, we're only limited to the site that we have to drill for water. If we don't find water there, then we have to look at other sources. Later on, you'll see in the presentation for the Bombay Beach Wetland project, the various water sources that we're using for that project and why we likely found water on that side. We have a lot more water going through that side, hence the big berm that works to keep the water out of the community. So these pictures here were taken a few weeks ago. These are from our trial here at West Bombay Beach. We did a couple lines of planting just to make sure that the clay soil. We were a little worried that because we didn't see a lot of existing vegetation on the site, that it was too clay. The soil had too high of a clay content, and it was just real muggy under there, and so it wasn't letting, it was choking the roots out. So we did a trial. These are some early signs of success that we're seeing out there. And we're gonna be implementing the same techniques that we did with planting and irrigation over on that side. And just happy to report that while we're late, and we apologize that we're late, that we will get started at the end of this year, early next year, to plant that entire site and hopefully get it done in this next planting window. We're also limited by the planting windows too. It's only plant when it's cooler, so that was the other reason. Once you miss the planting window, you gotta wait all summer long. And we know that summers here are usually 4 or 5 months, so that's kind of where we are. Next slide, please. So just to show you what you can expect, what we hope you can expect, what all signs that everything that we've done is showing us. Over on the left here, separated by the blue bar, you'll see the site when we first got onto it. We don't bail the whole site, we bail about half the site, or maybe like 60% of the site. And then downwind closest to the shoreline, we leave it bare. And that's because of what I told you earlier, that sand coming through gets blocked off on the upwind side. And by the time you get down to the downwind side, you control that dust coming through at the ground level. Hence, it's not really creating that abrasion on the plants, so they're a little more protected, and we can plant them without putting bales on them. So what you see on the top set of pictures here, the side before we got on and right after we put the bales down, and then the side as we started planting the side, this is about 1.5 years of growth on those sites at Salt City here. The bottom picture is the sites without bales that we planted closest to the shoreline. And what you see on the right is about another year to 1.5 years of growth. Right on the playa, right on that exposed area, those areas that we're targeting that are receiving. Next slide. So the top, I told you we have 2 sites. We have Clubhouse and Truly Wash. Truly Wash is the newer site. We just started on that site probably earlier this year, and you can already see the growth that's taking hold. But fast forward about another year, that's the Clubhouse side on the left, and you'll see all the growth around the bales over there, and also on the playa that's being grown out there. So this is kind of just what we can expect over here when we get the plants going later, the end of this year, early next year, and start planting and seeding up there. Next slide. So these are just aerials of those sites. These are approximately the same section that you're looking at. So the pictures on the right were taken in May, and the pictures on the left were taken probably summer, I think it was from like summer 2021, just before we got onto the site. You can see what's happening at the site, and just imagine the dust coming in and just being taken down by all that vegetation and the bales during the first phase. And so that's kind of what we can expect here. And we're seeing what I said about that saltation and what I said about that reduction and keeping dust particles down on the sites that we're working on. We're seeing the same success here at Bombay Beach as well. And we'll be putting that data together and putting that up on our website to show people that all those figures to show that we are creating or keeping dust down on the sites. Next slide. So we're going to go into the Bombay Beach Wetlands project. The first I want to see if you have any questions from anybody in the field. Yeah.
So I've been down on the fire, like 70 miles an hour, and the wind, the dust is blowing parallel to the shoreline. It's not coming from the other side. It's not coming from out of the desert this direction. It's running exactly parallel with the shoreline. So now, like the way you guys have the bale set up, it's not like blocking it at all. Because we have videos. Nothing.
Yeah, so for city first, we made a here with WR. So for the wind direction, we developing wind means the direction the wind's most likely to come from. So there are kind of wind does come in their direction. In the bells, they should be able to help with that when it's parallel, but it's still going to come across the sea in front. So we design the bells to take care of the building the most common wind. So sometimes there are instances where.
Well, 90% of the time it flows parallel to the shoreline.
Okay. Oh, sorry, maybe I'll let this. Oh. Yeah, we'll look at that more because I think you guys all noticed that we put out monitoring sanctions earlier this year or maybe last fall. So the data we were looking at now is a different deal. So I think we're bringing that up.
We are seeing winds coming from the west, but we also are seeing them come from the north,
Yeah.
north south as well.
Yeah,
So we'll be able to correlate the data to the direction as well. So you'll still see some saltation reduction, but maybe not at that 90% coming from the west side. But that's what we're doing right now, is we get through to see all that data, and we'll have all that data available to show you whether there's wind spikes, wind events, and which way the wind's blowing, and how much reduction of saltation is happening on the side.
okay, thank you.
What will happen when the hay bales disintegrate? What's gonna happen to all that hay?
So the question is, what's gonna happen when the hay bales disintegrate? So we've had bales out there for 2 years. Yeah, so what we're seeing with the bales right now is we haven't really seen any disintegrate. I mean, we are looking for that, and if it does, then we'll have to clean it up. But we haven't seen that. In fact, what we've seen is that when we get our winds come through, they're actually penetrating the bales and locking them together. And so we've had some bales come through, or people come through and rip the twine off, and we've had to clean them up. But we're seeing the bales actually hold up just fine.
Thanks. So on the west shores, particularly at Clubhouse, you had quite, and you can even see it in the pictures that you show, particularly at St. Pete. You had quite a lot of island bush and other vegetation on that plan before you got there, before you started. So you knew for sure that you had soil quality sufficient, and you had groundwater that for a long term that could sustain the vegetation over there. On this side, Bombay Beach, at your site, you drilled for groundwater, you didn't get much. What gives you a confidence that when you turn off that Coachella Valley Water District supply, that the vegetation is going to be sustainable here?
Well, we feel like establishing the vegetation, and then it'll be sustainable on its own, because they take little to no water when it's established. They're heliphatic plants for this region, iodine bush. And if you look upwind of the side here, you have some of those same plants growing upwind side of the water as well.
Well, yes, but they're heliphatic, yes, they're good, they handle a certain amount of salt, but the question really is there enough water of a quality in the ground to support those island bush over time?
Yeah, we believe so.
Right, see?
Years ago, we used to take the dredgings from the marina because it was like a sand. And use that, we spread that on, that was our lawns. And all of a sudden they come up and say, oh, you can't do that because it's toxic to run up from the farmers leaching their land. So that means this whole Salton Sea is contaminated that way. So you're talking about just putting vegetation around the little towns in this here. What about the rest of it? The kid will get taught, it's going for the rest of it. What are you gonna do about that? The only way I always think you can fill this place up with water again. The only way you can get rid of it is too big for, you can't sustain that much vegetation.
Yeah, vegetation is not gonna be the answer for all of the treatment. I mean, we're working from the 2003 level line down. Working on that exposed acreage. And currently in our 10-year plan, working at completing 30,000 acres as part of that, part of that exposed, lake bed. But yeah, this is not gonna be the treatment for all, for all the seeds.
We got all this stuff, it's out in the middle, but we're pulling toxic dust on us every day. So what is this? You guys are putting a little Band-Aid on it. That's all you're doing.
Well, I think we feel confident that the project itself we're not saying it's stopping dust, usually the dust from other areas, and then it's taking the dust and keeping it on that side. All we're saying is that it's controlling the dust on that side. We really can't do anything about dust coming from other places, but what we're trying to do is work on specific sites and control the dust on those sites, and what we're seeing, at least initially, and what I've said here today, is that we're controlling the dust on those specific sites to not contribute more to what's already out there, blowing in.
What they talked about back then, they were gonna bring truckloads of dirt to cover the whole Salt Lake City area. Well, what would that do to the environment? But that's, you need to cover the whole thing, Like right now, what's covering the dust from the, out in the middle there? So what are you doing?
Well, we're working on part at a time, that's all we can do.
Why is it so impossible not to bring water back to the sea? Then all this would end. All those people with their finger in the pie would go away. And we never had problems before when we had water in the sea.
Yeah, that was analyzed in our long range plan, and that's something that's being analyzed by the Army Corps of Engineers during the long range, our feasibility study for long range restoration at the sea. That's something that's not completely out of the question, but import is also very costly thing, and so I see Tom's hand go straight up, and let's go straight to Tom. All I can say is we're not making those decisions at this time. We're working on our 10-year plan to restore 30,000 acres, and that is being analyzed at this time.
Elon Musk had the best plan to bring water from Carlsbad 75 miles straight through the mountain to the sea. Pipe in, pipe out. Quarter the cost, quarter the time.
Yes, go ahead.
But the powers that be, they're not going to give the blessing. So it's not going to happen. But it would end all this. It would be back to normal.
For those online, she was talking about bringing water from Carlsbad. It was a proposal by Elon Musk to bring a straight shot 75 miles from Carlsbad to the Salt Sea. I was asking if that would be an option, and at this point, I don't think it's one.
Nobody has ever, nobody with the government, with the state has ever been willing to do a real feasibility analysis of the state. It accepted 15 proposals about ocean water import a couple of years ago, but chose someone to evaluate them, and chose not to evaluate any of the proposals, and instead created a couple of their own. And the only proposal that you will see in the long range plan is the one that involves ocean water import at all. Is two from one person, Dr. Brenta Dodd, works for UC Santa Cruz and was hired, paid $2.5 million by the state, announced all the way back in 2002 that he opposed restoration of the Salt Sea. And that was the individual who came up with the only ocean water import proposal that you will see. And he overpriced it by a factor of 10 to be sure that it would be out of consideration. And he refused to actually do the feasibility analysis of any of the outside proposals that he was purportedly hired to do.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get this meeting back on track here, and I just would ask if there's any other questions about this work that we're doing, or any of the work that I just talked about, so that we can move on to our next update regarding the Bombay Beach Wetlands project. Any last questions on that project?
And if there's no questions here, we'd like to just make a quick check to see if we have any questions online before we move on to our next presentation. Okay, we got one.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Here we have.
Yes, we can hear.
Iron data.
Okay. Hi, thanks for doing this presentation and keeping us informed. I'm wondering if you're going to continue to cut off access.
I'm not sure that we can hear the question, so we might ask if you can put the question in the Q&A, and then we can read it out loud.
Okay.
Let's go back.
Okay. We'll go back to them. Okay, so I think we're ready to go to our next slide. Next on our agenda is an update on this collaborative project with Songs Management Program in Audubon, which is a project on the other side of town.
I have the question if you want to do it.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah. So the question from our Iron Dad online, it says, asks, will access continue to be restricted on the west side after the plants are established?
Until the project is complete, then I would say that access will be limited on the project. Just for ease of ensuring that the plants take hold and that they don't get trampled out there. So while the project is in active construction and monitoring, yeah, there'll be restricted access.
Yeah, and also just want to say that within that restricted access, we could also set up some time to go out there if the community decides to, wants to check out the project, have a closer look, look at whatever irrigation system we've got going on the plants itself. If you guys ever want to do that, once we get to that point and see some actual growth, we can definitely schedule something and get you guys out there. Bring Steven and the rest of the team out here to want to learn more specific about the plans or just learn more about the project. We can definitely schedule that in time. However, public access will be limited because it is an active construction site, and we're going to keep, safety is a priority. Okay, so I think we're ready now for our next presentation. I want to invite Milo from Audubon, and Hance's presentation will be led by Audubon, and then Mario will be stepping in as well. So on the Bombay Beach Wetland Enhancement Project. Okay, so just want to do a quick overview on the presentation. So Mel's going to do a project overview of this project, and this we're going to also get an update on the public access, also an update on the project itself, and then Mario will mention a little bit more about next steps and schedule for this project. So.
Okay, hi everybody, my name is Camila Bautista and I'm the Salty and Desert Program Manager with Audubon, California. And we are partnered with the state on this Bombay Beach Wetland project. So as Mario said, I'm going to be telling you all about just like a project overview. So I'm going to tell you like where the project is, where the water is coming from, what our project goals are. And then I'm going to pass it on to Hans and he's going to tell you all about the public access component. And then Mario will let you know just like the project updates. But before I tell you all about the actual project, I'd like to take a step back and kind of just think about like how did we even figure out that this project exists and we can actually do that. And self-sustaining is obviously very important. You guys know all of the issues that it's facing. And we actually ran a report in 2020, and that was a geospatial analysis, and that essentially looked through to see like as the seas receding, seeing this exposed lake bed coming up, but at the same time you're seeing a lot of emerging wetlands popping up. And in that report that we ran, we found that there was about 10,000 acres throughout the entire perimeter of the Salton Sea, where these emerging wetlands are popping up. And this figure kind of shows that through these like green dots that you can see around there. So through that analysis, within those 6,000 acres, we did find the Bombay Beach Wetland Project, and that's just 122 acres currently within those 6,000 acres. And I'll talk a little bit about why we chose Bombay Beach specifically in a couple of slides, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And another thing that you might be thinking is like, well, there's 6,000 acres of wetlands, why do we need a project? And that's because the Salton Sea is super dynamic, it's changing all the time, what we're seeing now, we might not see in 5 years. So the wetland that's already there, Bombay Beach, it's vulnerable, so, there's like storms that can come by and that can erode a lot of the hydrogeological structures and cause like wetland drainage. That's just one example. Next slide, please. So here's where the project is located. It's about 1.5 miles east of where we are right now. So, here's Bombay Beach community. Here's the wetland itself. In the next slide, I'll kind of show you guys like a better view of what the wetland actually looks like. But this is the actual project area that you can see that's hashed out right there. And the whole project area is 564 acres. And like I said, there's 122 acres of actual wetland that's already existing. Next slide, please. And then I like to show pictures as well, just because I think it's really beautiful and I wouldn't really have guessed that that's there. Especially if you just compare it to like what the Salton Sea looks like, because this looks, vastly different. So these are actual photos that we took, and you can find this, like I said, 1.5 miles from here. And you can kind of see like the differences in terms of like ponding. So we see some bigger ponds, we see some smaller ones, we see some land in between there. You see all of that vegetation. And then this is what it looks like in an aerial image. And you can see like this is all the wetland that I was telling you about. You can see that there are washes coming down. This is the Chocolate Mountains in the back. And then I wanted to highlight as well, these are the wetlands, and then adjacent to the wetlands are exposed lake bed. And that's still included within the project area that we're working on. And the intent is to like expand the wetlands laterally as well. Next slide, please. So our first project goal is focused on habitat. We are interested in stabilizing the wetlands already there. And then that's kind of what I was mentioning. There's already wetlands that are there. I showed you guys pictures. So that's our first intention is to, implement what we can within our project design so that what's already there, that's high value habitat can remain there. Next slide, please. And then our second project goal is to enhance the habitat, and that's kind of what I was saying, where there's 122 acres of wetlands already, but our intention is to expand that, and then just kind of create more high value habitat that is wetlands, as well as add some vegetation along what's currently exposed lake bed. And then I've touched on this already, but this is our third official goal, and that's to implement some sort of dust control option here. And I really like this picture because you can kind of see what I'm talking about. This shows like an exposed lake bed background, but you can see that there's vegetation there and there's water there. And that's kind of the intention with us within our project design is to really optimize the water use that that's coming into the project and expand that laterally from the existing wetland itself, so that we can get things like this, and then this is, this can help suppress dust. Next slide, please. And then our fourth and final project objective is to implement a community benefit, and that's in the form of public access. So those pictures that I showed you, I think they're really beautiful, and I think it's important for you all to be able to go there. So Hans will tell you more about that in a couple of slides, but that is one of our project goals. Next slide, please. And then I did want to just talk about the water, and what makes this wetland a little bit different is that within those 6,000 acre figure that I did mention earlier, about like all the wetlands popping up around the entire Salton Sea. What makes this one a little different from the rest is that the water that's coming in is not coming in from like agricultural runoff, like the majority of them, but the water coming into here is actually from a local source, and it's just kind of your neighbors up here. This is Highway 111 right here, and so just north of that is the Pacific Aqua Farm. We also have North Glamis Hot Spring Spa, we have Bashford Spa, we have Alton Youth. So all of those folks are tapped into like a native geothermal well. They're using that in their properties, and then they're discharging it. And then you can see like there's already existing washes that have been there for years, as their properties have been there for years. That water's just naturally converges into what is the Bombay Beach wetland. And that's just like one source. Of course, there's stormwater input as well. But that's definitely a long-lasting source that has been there for years. And the reason that the water stays within the wetland and doesn't just go into the Salton Sea is I think of it as two big reasons, and one of them is that there's a shoreline berm that's long-standing. You can really see that here. This is really sharp, clear line against there, and that's what we call the 2002 shoreline berm. So back then the salton sea was there, it was there for a long time. As the shoreline is like moving, it's depositing, sediments. And then that creates this natural barrier so that when water's coming in from these washes, it's hitting those berms and it's a barrier, so it's pooling there. And then another thing is, this area does have beach and lake in place. And so that's basically this like soil layer that's super like impermeable, so water that's coming in is not like permeating as quickly, so it pools. Next slide, please. And then I also want to talk about land ownership. This project does have two landowners. It has the United States Bureau of Reclamation as well as IID. And they're very much engaged on this project. We've been working with them. Of course, we cannot build anything without landowner permission, so they've been engaged within this project from day one. Next slide, please. And then my final slide before I pass it on to Hans, so that I can talk to you about public access, is just a quick overview about what our project design looks like, and this is preliminary, we're still working on it, so this is not like the final project design, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea. When I talk about construction, when I talk about project completion, it's not something that's super highly engineered. We're trying to keep this within what's kind of naturally occurring, and basically enhances natural features such as the shoreline berms that are already existing within this project, and that can really help move water the way we would like it to, so that we can create more wetland habitat as well as spread it laterally in what is already currently exposed by it. And another feature that we would create is what we call a berm. So all these U shapes that you're seeing on the sides, that's essentially like a 2 to 3 foot tall soil, for example, let's just say like dirt, and it's in the shape of a U. So whenever water's coming down, it'll fill one of those berms or those funds, and then it'll go into the next one and then into the next one. So it can move laterally. And then that can kind of create that picture that I showed you earlier in the public access slide, or the dust suppression slide. It can create that. That's what we're wanting to happen. That's it for me. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Hans, so he can tell you about public access.
Yeah, thanks everyone. My name is Hans Naumann. I'm the consulting landscape architect for Audubon. So I've seen many of you at meetings before, but some new faces here too. So for those of you who have been to our meetings in the past or haven't, Audubon has been coming to the community for probably about 2 years now. So I just want to thank the state for coming, because they've really been a great partner to this project. And early on, I think we were hearing questions from all of you about the viability of this project. And so I think it speaks to the process and the engagement of all of you that they're here today and that they're partners in this. So I think that that's a huge success, and we really appreciate it. So this is an update, but it's also intended as a listening session. So whatever you see, we're here to answer questions, but then also to hear ideas. We've been trying to implement a lot of the ideas that we've been given in the community, specifically about needs that you see and ways that they can be integrated in the project. So we'd really like to continue in the spirit of that. And that's part of the reason that we're here, even though this is technically a state meeting, is because we wanted to illustrate to all of you that there's a continuation in this team, that the dialogue that you've had with all of us has been passed on to the state, but that is also being taken seriously by the state. So I just wanted to say that before I got into the details of everything. So next slide, please. So what we just did was kind of zoomed in. I'm going to stand over here actually. So this is Bombay Beach. This is where we are. And as Neil pointed out, there's a parcel of land between our project area, the wetlands, and your community here. And that's owned by IOB. So what we've been negotiating, rather than the specific design of the wetland, like how one might actually walk around it, because that at the end of the day is really being driven by the engineering. And we're going to try to make the public access components inside the site follow the engineering moves. So what we've been really focusing on is how to get everyone from the community over into the wetlands. So we know a lot of the conversations we've had, also what we heard today about the hay bales, that's something that's very important to all of you. So originally the idea was perhaps to bring people all the way in the wetland. In investigating this parcel of land, we realized, as many of you probably do, that there's some intermittent washes here
that kind of prevent access in addition to IID's dust control project. So this dust control project is being designed and implemented by IID. It's not a component of our project, but what we are asking IID is to allow an extension from First Street, so by the American Legion, that you would be able to continue on that in a vehicle if you wanted, and drive to a parking area that we've marked A. And so, these are, you can see down here, like, this is a quarter of a mile. So this is still conceptual, but in principle, in our discussions with IID and with the state, this should be okay. So what our goal is with point A is really to get you as close as possible to the wetland area, so that you're not walking approximately a mile back and forth through that dust control area. Next slide, please. What we're imagining is, again, vehicular access, parking at point A, and then moving along that green dotted line outside this perimeter fence that IID has planned to install. So most likely, you would be walking on a path, probably gravel or native surface, and be enclosed by probably like a wooden split rail fence or something on either side of you. But probably I would imagine it's like a 6 or 8 foot wide path, something like that. So from point A to the project site, that's pretty much what you would be experiencing. And then, then you're entering the wetland and you're seeing all those really cool photos I can really show. So not as easy as driving all the way to the site, but I think this is, given that we don't control the IID land and that we're requesting access to it, it's kind of the best approach that we were able to bring to the project in terms of bringing you into the site. We can go to the next slide. So what we're going to do is just show you an idea of what that parking lot A could look like, because we don't just want it to be like an open gravel lot. We think that we can take some of the kind of unique character of this community and make it a bit of a special place, provide some limited amenities so that, if you're out there, it's providing some sort of extensive entry to the site, etc. So we're just going to zoom in to that parking lot on the next slide, please. So, we kind of twist it a little bit, right? So north is this way. Here's that yellow line again. So you're driving in or walking if you want, or bicycle, whatever, to this parking area that would be fairly limited in size. We would like to introduce ADA compliance in this area, interpretive signage, seating. All of this is called out in a graphic behind Mario. So sometimes these screens are a little hard to read. If we want to talk through it in person after this, we certainly can. We can listen to ideas about what you might like to include in that area. But essentially you're parking and you're entering the trail system here. And again, here's that dust control mitigation area and the site exclusion fencing. So really what we want to convey here is that the parking lot is near but outside of that exclusion fencing, and you're kind of walking along. Next slide, please. And so if anyone's online and isn't able to see the printed version, they can hopefully refer to this document, but this is just kind of calling out, various amenities. So, crushed gravel, road surfacing, affordable restroom, some limited shade trees, some seating, interpretive signage, a shade structure with some picnic area. So fairly limited in scope, but again, we don't have utilities servicing this part of the area. So we're a little bit constrained in what we believe can be done. And we're also really interested in creating a sustainable project that's managed well. So we want to limit operating costs and maintenance costs moving forward, so that we're getting a design over to the state that can really be cared for and be implemented well over the long term. We don't want to make something and then let it go, just whatever. We want this to be something that that you visit repeatedly and that you're proud of. What's not on here, and it is something that's been a kind of longer term discussion, is implementing some form of art from the community, whether that's in interpretive signage, in barrier structures, something. I think we can talk about that informally. What we're probably imagining is some sort of ongoing discussion that helps us identify how to implement that. As you can see, this is really just about the general functioning of this area, but we are very aware of the fact that incorporating that creative spirit in this community is very important to many of you. So if you're not seeing that in this graphic, hopefully you're hearing it from me. Next slide. And am I handing it over to you? Okay, cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, just wanted to give you a little bit of where we are. You may have heard that, you know, at one point, we've always been working in collaboration with Audubon and their team to design the project with the goal of ultimately taking over O&M for the project. We being the state, being the Salt Management Program. And so we started working through initial phases of the conceptual and up to about a 30% design. And, you know, when we started looking at the permitting and the land access agreements that would have to happen between the different landowners, you know, between USDR and IND and Audubon, and between Audubon and the state, and between the state and IND and the state and the planning nation. I mean, just saying it's just a lot, right? And so we just thought to simplify this, that the state would take over constructing the project. And ultimately, there would be no handoff for O&M, we would just be constructing the project and maintaining the project. And so that's a recent shift that just happened over this last spring. We are still very much committed, and I think is still very much kind of leading and driving on design with working with our engineers and with our Department of Water Resources staff, our California Department of Fish and Wildlife staff to build this project for the benefit of ecological value, but also for suppressing dust and spreading that wetland out with that 100-acre, you know, existing wetland to a 500-acre wetland. And very much supportive of the public access component. It's something that we heard in the recent community needs report that we produced in collaboration with many partners. If you haven't seen it, it's on our website, and public access is one of the 8 service needs that communities said that they want to increase, and recreation at the city. And so I think this is something that really hits on that, and something that's very much very strongly supportive of public access for this project. And IID has been very supportive of public access. Hence, you know, the location of the parking area that we're talking about, that's on IID land, that's adjacent to the project. You know, there would be yet a third owner that would have to talk to you for, you know, placing the parking lot, you know, the community service district along First Avenue there. And so we really want to just simplify things, expedite the timeline, and just get involved. And not that we weren't before, but really start driving this, making this a priority project for the Salt Management Program and Audubon. And so where we are now is we're already meeting and driving on our design. We get to about a 65% design. And like I mentioned earlier, the spirit of really community involvement, and not just in this project, but for all projects. We really want to get out to the community. Now when the project is cooked and ready to go, we're in design phases of these projects. And so this is what we're doing here today. We're, like I said, at 35% design. Coming to you early for feedback, or ideas, or suggestions, or things that we might be able to incorporate into the design. And then coming back later on when we get to like a 90% design. Just before we get to final design, to say, hey, look, these are the updates. This is where we're at. The 30% design where we were last time. We're now at 90% design. Here's what changed. Here's what we're looking at, and here's the kind of thing that we're looking for to get to 100% design, and then eventually go out to bid and coming back with feedback at that time. So this is the model that we're taking, that we're going to take with all of our projects that are being built next to communities. We certainly got on the wrong foot with the best project, and don't want to do that again. And so really want to start our engagement has just evolved 9 years from where it was 3 years ago. just coming out of COVID and getting able to get back into communities and talk to communities. In settings like this and host public meetings online for partners around the city and meeting communities. And so, really looking at all this model moving forward. So like I said, we're now going to construct the project, and that is again for ease of securing land access agreements for the various landowners and for ease of permitting the project as well. Current estimated budget is about 10 to 14 million. Currently, there's funding for design that's been provided by Reclamation and other sources. It's been provided to Ottawa for design of this project. And then there's funding that was recently allocated through the Inflation Reduction Act from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. That's tied to that commitment agreement for water conservation that's happening with IID. The federal government gave $250 million to the Salton Sea Management Program. Most of it is being used to double the size of the Species Conservation Habitat Project, which is at the other end of the sea. But $5 million of that has been given to this project, to build this project. And so that's a funding that we're seeing. Previously, Audubon had put in an application for a Wildlife Conservation Board for potentially up to another $5 million in funding. We're now, since we're now constructing the project, we're now resubmitting that application, that same application for that same amount of funding. So we're really optimistic about running this project. We're really optimistic about an accelerated timeline to get this project on the ground. And we're eager to get this project going. Next slide. So schedule next steps. So we're hoping to complete our land access agreements by first quarter of 2025. And hopefully be at the same at 65% design. Saying that first quarter of 2025. Complete design by second quarter of 2025. Hopefully get some grant funding at that time. Have all our permitting ready. Then go out to bid by third quarter of 2025. But hopefully we can construct by 2025. So that's the schedule that we're on currently. And the immediate next steps is just continuing to meet on 17th, maybe in 2 weeks to just get the design ready, start beginning the permitting, where the packages are permitting, and get that ready to go as quick as possible, and continuing to apply additional money for funding this entire project, once we have a final budget for it. Like I just mentioned, just continue to out to the community and give updates on this and other projects, while we're still in the design. So yes. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. We'll open it up for questions.
Are you going to rechannel the water that's coming off the spas?
So just so the folks can hear you on mic.
Are you going to rechannel the water that's coming down off the spas and off the mountains? And if so, is this going to destroy some of the natural habitat that's been feeding all the trees and things all these years?
No, we're not going to do that. The water is already looking into channels and it's already going into the wetlands as it is. The only thing that we're gonna touch is like that project area box that I showed earlier. And that will be just like flow control structures, not just kind of minimal to reroute water, what's already within the wetlands.
I know you worry when you have it like this, but don't worry. This is a smart project. You're taking what nature already started to do, you're sustaining it, you're expanding it. This is the right way to go. You know, a smart thing. Got a question, 2 questions for either Camilla or Mario. Yeah, one for us. The amount of water that you've got, it's been coming a long time from the spas and the fish farm. And one, are you confident that that's going to sustain? Probably it will. Do you have enough water to move some of that down onto the playa? Because you're going to get a very rapid expansion of playa in the next 2 years. And can you move that vegetation down the playa? And then the other question for you is, what's your plan for taking out tamarisk and potentially replacing it with some native trees so you can have some shade along the walk areas and for the birds and everything that uses that, because, you know, they'll be just as happy with native plants and not more so than timberless. And then the question for Hans is, I'm really glad that you're finding a way to work around IID's ubiquitous no trespassing signs and get public access. That's fantastic. What about, since we've got such an active art community in Bombay Beach, what about establishing some spots along the trail? And I'm guessing it might be a raised trail to some degree because I've walked out there before the no trespassing signs went out. And there's a lot of mud and water to try to jump your way through. But what about establishing some stop spots along the trail with a little shade and say, here's a spot for an artist to just create anything that's an interpretation of what you see. And do several of those and let the local art community have an active participation and say something about what you put in.
I can start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the intention is to have the water come down, and we do want to spread it as a substitute seeds. That was initially a phase 2 of this project, but at this time we're focusing on phase 1. But I do recognize that the city will retaliate and that will leave that behind, right? But within that project area box that we included, you know, it includes some of that, but definitely not accounting for the future section at this point. But that is definitely something that we have thought about this. And then about the tamarisk, that is a great question, and we've got that a lot. I just don't know at this time exactly what the plan is that we're gonna do there. In the past, we've kind of talked about different ideas in terms of cutting them down, but I do know that that is a difficult plan. I know that some of the ponds within the center of the wetland, the intention is to have it a little deeper, so that hopefully the budding tamarisk won't grow, but that's a good question, and I can get back to you unless somebody else has an answer, but yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then regarding your question for spots along the trail, in earlier graphics that we have distributed in the community, we've always shown that there needs to be some form of shade intermittently along the trail. Just because the trail system has the potential to be rather extensive, so it would benefit people to have a moment to, you know, have a break, right? And as far as the idea for an artist to use space, I love it, I wrote it down, so, you know, these are the sorts of comments that we like to hear, and, you know, we need to discuss with all the stakeholders, but I think it's super cool, so thank you.
Yeah, if I get chatting real quick, I do agree that it is community gets involved in the community that way. So I mentioned though that, you know, some cement program funding is sort of limited within scope and how it can be used, however we can get very creative, especially we have partners like Audubon to go for funding that could allow that type of activities to be committed as part of the project. So just wanted to point that out.
But you've got artists, you've got a lot of artists out on the beach here at Bombay Beach funding their own projects. Either just because they make them very inexpensively, or in some cases, they're very well connected and have ways of funding their projects. So if you just provide a space and attractive space, for them to put something, you may not have to pay a dime for it beyond providing the space.
Thank you, Thomas.
When IID had their project with the community, the community voiced heavily on being an advocate with the community and providing the actual community, the people who live here, to be part of the project instead of excluding them. During the meeting, we proposed interpretive trails, interpretive panels being funded by outside sources, and they were not acceptable. They were not even, well, it didn't go very far. I'm really honored and grateful that you guys are here supporting some of the community's needs so we can survive. Otherwise, as far as IID being the big brother of all of us, you know, I wouldn't have invested in this community without you guys' effort. And Audubon, thank you for opening that communication with them. No cyclone fences, right? Please,
Right.
please, we want to live in your nature.
We were talking about an ID, look at seven bonus.
Is there any more questions?
It would really be a shame for them to take out some really big tamarisks to give lots of shade and put in these little bitty plants that takes years to grow.
Off-roaders that tend to leave town out of Legion to get up to the Twilight Mountains. Is that going to block their access for that time?
I don't think so because it's not, because the American Legion is right here on the corner and the Chocolate Mountains are guard. So it's not within that, the project is 1.5 miles east of here.
It runs up to 111 project.
The actual project area is restricted within that project box that we showed earlier, which is only like within this plant and it's south of Highway 11. So that is not within our jurisdiction.
So those are the highway 11,
That, yeah, maybe we can go back to that project area, slide one more. Yes, yeah, so this is the project area and this is Highway 111. So anything that's not in here is really not within our jurisdiction.
That's the extension of First Street. Well, all the way, that would be from there, from First Street down. And so that would leave the left-hand side for the off-roaders?
I mean, this is an island project right here. This
Yeah.
is not ours. Our project is within this hash. line.
The IID is gonna put up their barriers.
IID's property on the First Street is 320 acres down to the fly along the berm. And then your first project's the extension of that.
Steve, can you repeat that in the microphone? We have folks on mic that are listening. They can't hear you.
I have a funding question. You have 5 million, 5 million now. And that's already and proposed many more millions. That 5 million is on the books, or is it about to be spent for the permitting and all the future? And who is the overseer of the money? Is it the state? The county, or
Yeah, the state will be constructing the project and we will be receiving that $5 million and earmarking it to this project. The project design is already funded. We go back to that, if you look at that slide of the funding. That's been funded by Bureau of Reclamation, directly into Audubon, to support Audubon and the contractors to help with the design. So that $5 million will not go to design, that will actually go to actual construction of the project.
and it'll go out to a state bid, and they'll have to be a state contractor to bid. Just like the IID, they have to be on IID's list to be able to farm.
There'll be a request for proposals, bids. There'll be a scope of work put together, and there'll be a request for bids.
So it'll be a state.
Yes.
We have an artist in town. He has a very, very large installation that he would like to put up near the entrance to the project. And we have the blessing of the board here, put it just beyond the Legion. So it would act as a welcome center, and I think it would enhance the whole project.
Mario, a question in regards to it sounds like, sorry, I just want to respond to that. So you're talking about Ascension?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're huge fans of it. We've loved that idea since day one. And one of the things that we had been floating around was just, because the land above First Street is owned by the community service district. That, especially because it's such a large piece and, we're trying to limit that it may make more sense to locate it on the service district land, but spatially it would still feel like it was part of the project.
Right.
Because, when you're out there, you want to see the property lines, right? So it's certainly on our radar, and I think it's one of those little wrinkles that we're trying to hopefully bring into the project. I mean, obviously, make promises, but it's still on the list.
Good.
Yeah, you like it, so thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And so, Mario, my question is, it's a very good project to make this natural resource development area. But the impacts of water transfer. So over the next 3 years, water and the lowering. Can you share with us what the projected loss of elevation is going to be? And is it going to have any impact on this project or any other projects?
Well, with the water transfers, I mean, you might have a quicker recession for that next phase, but if you look at the area of interest for the project. To answer your question about the water, we don't believe, I mean, the hydrology still need that. But because the water sources are coming from upstream now from irrigation, land and conservation program. We anticipate at least the water that's historically been there will be there for this project and just sustain the original footprint of the project. Now, how quick the exposure happens for the second phase, because second phase of this project is to chase the shoreline. So that space from the outer edge of this project down to the newer exposed line. We have that kind of mapped out as far as how many acres that'll be. It might just be more acres, and we'll have to see water availability coming from the upstream side. What's available to funnel down to that second phase of wetland phase 2, which is the seaward expansion of that project. But for this project, we don't anticipate impact to the existing water that flows there, although we're still waiting to see if the water that flows there, especially in drier months, is going to be sustainable for the entire project. So that's still being considered. We're not saying yet that we know that we have all the water for the project. There may be dry years that we don't have the water, or we need to find another source, and that's still being evaluated. We would have to regulate for it.
I do have I have one online. So question is from Iron Dad. And he says, well, I'm happy to see that public access has become a first-class priority in the project. It looks like the parking lot is positioned more than a mile from the center of the wetlands. How long will the trail be, and what will be done to make the entire site accessible to those who can't walk that far?
Yeah, so we haven't got that far down the design. However, we do anticipate we're gonna need roads for maintenance and for construction into the project, right? So, we're working to see, working with IID to look for an access road into the project through this site, through this area we're talking about. We anticipate, although we still need to, have MOUs in place, we do anticipate that we'll have some drop-off locations in the wetland and possibly like viewing area. And understand that we will have to look at making whatever drop off that we make inside the wetlands compliant and accessible. And so at least for what we've done today, we know that we have to get the parking lot up to ADA compliance. And then when you hit a trail into a reserve and you're going to a wetland with endangered species and impacted species, there's a different level of potential access and trail access. And so we're still evaluating all that, you know, we're not completely sure about that, but we do anticipate our hope for guided tours or tours that would be able to bring some folks into the middle of the wetland, understanding that there's a long you know, getting your Bombay Beach all the way to the center of the wetland.
Are you doing anything to attract the birds other than just the water? Is there anything in, for them to eat or to bring them to the area?
There's nothing specific, like, that's tracking them, but the water itself is less stable, so that is, you know, inviting other life to live there. The birds we also found are eating biofilm, and that's like this bacteria film on top of the water that formed, and we did an analysis actually here at Bombay Beach Wetlands, and we did find that there is biofilm and birds are most likely eating it. So that was a preliminary study, and you know, hopefully we'll find money to do an study like that, but we are seeing that there are other sources already occurring just because of how the wetlands are already, right? So birds are there, we see them. We have to do bird surveys every 3 months. And so, yeah, we definitely track them. You know, we're not from pelicans, obviously, you know, this particular wetland is very, it's like a shallow water, so it's not meant to attract, you know, or have fish for bigger fishing birds. But we definitely are a lot of sharks there. Yes, and then in December, on December 4th, we are having what we call the Pacific Flyway Shorebird Survey. That's open to the public. If you guys want to go, you can ask me. But we do have like lead bird surveyors. It's an entire Salton Sea that we do. So it's like literally the whole shoreline we split up to different groups.
Okay, is there any more questions? Any more questions online? Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to conclude our meeting. I just want to thank you all for being here. Also, we got some more time. We've got some beautiful pictures of this project on the back. We have some in the back too. If you want to stay a little bit more, we can have a one-on-one chat on those. Still have some snacks, still have water. Thank you all for showing up. I'll see you next time.